Have you ever poured your heart out, offered unwavering support, unconditional kindness, boundless love, only to be met with coldness, betrayal, or blatant disrespect? You gave everything, expecting nothing in return but perhaps a shred of the same humanity you extended. Instead, you received pain, confusion, a gaping wound that screams the question, why? You're left replaying every moment, dissecting every word, searching for a reason, a flaw in yourself that could explain such injustice. You wonder if you were foolish, if your love was wasted, if you deserved it. The hurt isn't just about their actions, it's about the shattering of your belief in fairness, in reciprocity, in the inherent goodness you thought you were cultivating. It's a bitter pill to swallow, this stark reality that sometimes, even when you offer only warmth, others will choose to burn you. This isn't about blaming you for your pain, it's about understanding a harsh, ancient truth that can liberate you from its corrosive grip. Because the secret to healing, to moving forward, lies not in understanding them, but in mastering yourself. The core problem we face when we're treated badly, especially after showing love, is multifaceted and deeply insidious. It's not merely the initial sting of their actions, but the long shadow it casts over our lives. This profound sense of betrayal and injustice infiltrates every aspect of our being. In daily life, this unresolved hurt can make you guarded. You might find yourself constantly on alert, suspicious of new kindness, expecting the other shoe to drop. Simple interactions become minefields. You hold back your genuine self, fearful of being vulnerable again. This creates a self-imposed isolation, preventing the very connection you crave. Emotionally, the impact is devastating. We wrestle with bitterness, resentment, and a corrosive self-doubt that whispers, "Was I not enough? Am I unlovable?" Anxiety becomes a constant companion as we ruminate on the past, reliving the pain. This internal turmoil can morph into chronic stress, affecting sleep, concentration, and overall well-being. Our habits and decision-making become warped. Some might retreat entirely, avoiding intimacy to prevent future pain. Others might overcompensate, becoming people-pleasers, desperately trying to earn the love they believe they were denied, thus falling into cycles of unhealthy relationships. Decisions are made from a place of fear or perceived lack, rather than genuine self-worth. This directly sabotages personal growth and resilience. When we are consumed by the why of someone else's hurtful actions, we are stuck. We cannot move on, we cannot learn, and we certainly cannot forgive, neither them nor ourselves. It prevents us from channeling our energy into self-improvement, leaving us brittle and prone to further emotional injury, perpetually caught in the shadow of someone else's poor choices. We yearn for peace, but our unexamined hurt, driven by a desperate need for answers from outside ourselves, keeps us shackled to a past we cannot change. This deep human struggle with betrayal and undeserved suffering is not a modern phenomenon. 2 millennia ago, in the bustling marketplaces and quiet courtyards of the ancient world, the Stoics grappled with similar questions about human nature, injustice, and how to maintain inner peace amidst a world often indifferent or even actively hostile. They didn't speak of toxic relationships in our contemporary terms, but they understood deeply the sting of malice, the frustration of ignorance, and the corrosive power of allowing others' actions to dictate our inner state. Epictetus, the former slave, arguably faced more unjust treatment than most of us ever will. He taught that the key to freedom lies in understanding what is within our control and what is not. Other people's actions, their judgments, their decisions, these are emphatically not within our control. To allow their behavior, however cruel, to disturb our inner peace is to voluntarily surrender our freedom. He would assert, it is not events that disturb people, but their interpretation of them. Your pain, while real, is often prolonged by your judgment of their actions and your belief that you shouldn't have been treated that way. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, bore the burden of leadership and the often disappointing nature of humanity. In his meditations, he repeatedly reminded himself to approach those who wronged him with a profound understanding of human fallibility. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and unsociable. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil. He wasn't excusing their behavior, but depersonalizing it. Their actions, he believed, stemmed from their own misguided judgments, their own ignorance of what truly constitutes good. Seneca, who faced political intrigue, exile, and eventual forced suicide, also wrote extensively on anger and forgiveness. He understood the impulse to lash out, to seek retribution, but cautioned against it as a self-inflicted wound. To cling to resentment was to chain oneself to the wrongdoer. He taught that true wisdom lies in freeing oneself from these destructive passions, recognizing that the wrongdoer often harms themselves more than their victim, by corrupting their own character. These ancient Stoics understood that the human condition is fraught with imperfections. People act from ignorance, weakness, or sometimes out of malice. But their philosophy offered a radical form of protection, not by shielding you from the external world, but by fortifying your internal world. They taught that the injustice you experienced, while a fact of the external world, does not have to become an injustice within your soul if you refuse to let it. The fundamental nature of human weakness and the confusion it causes for those who are kind remains as poignant and challenging today as it was in their time. Now, here's a truth that might feel like a blow, but is in fact your ultimate liberation, a profound Stoic reorientation. The deepest, most enduring wound they inflicted upon you was not their bad behavior itself. It was the unexamined belief you adopted in its aftermath, the belief that their actions somehow diminished your worth, that their unkindness reflected on your goodness, or that you were entitled to a reciprocal kindness you did not receive. What if their inability to receive or reciprocate love says absolutely nothing about the quality of the love you offered? What if the true injustice isn't what they did to you, but what you allow them to continue to do to you, in your own mind long after they've gone? This perspective shifts the battlefield from a futile external struggle to a powerful internal reclamation. To truly grasp this liberating truth, we must dive into the Stoic psychology of why this particular kind of hurt, betrayal after kindness, cuts so deeply and lingers so persistently. Our minds are complex instruments, and while wired for connection and survival, they also possess tendencies that trap us in cycles of suffering when confronted with injustice. One more way. Why humans struggle with this issue. 1. To the social instinct and fairness. Humans are social creatures. We thrive on connection, trust, and reciprocity. We instinctively believe in a fundamental fairness. If I give, I should receive. If I am kind, I should be treated with kindness. When this unspoken contract is violated, it deeply wounds our social instinct, triggering a profound sense of injustice and a desperate need for equilibrium. We project our own standards onto others, and when they fail to meet them, we feel personally violated. 2. Our attachment to outcomes. We don't just love, we often love with an expectation of a particular outcome: fidelity, respect, appreciation. When that outcome is denied or subverted, our attachment to it causes immense suffering. The Stoics would call this desire for things outside our control. We become emotionally invested in their response, their gratitude, their decency, all things ultimately beyond our command. 3. The ego's involvement and external validation. Our sense of self-worth often becomes entangled with how others treat us. If someone we love treats us badly, especially after we've been generous, our ego interprets this as a judgment on us. If I were truly good, lovable, worthy, they wouldn't have done this. We look to their actions as a reflection of our value, handing them immense power over our self-esteem. How the mind reacts. Cognitive dissonance and rumination. The mind struggles with the conflicting information: I was good versus they were bad to me. It tries to resolve this by endlessly replaying events, searching for a logical explanation, often blaming itself. This rumination keeps the wound fresh, preventing closure. Personalization. We tend to make everything about us. Their actions, which might stem from their own brokenness, insecurity, or ignorance, are perceived as a direct, targeted assault on our person. Victimhood mentality. While valid to acknowledge being victimized, lingering in a state of passive victimhood surrenders our power. It focuses solely on what was done to us rather than what we can do for ourselves now. Emotional traps and cognitive illusions. The fairness fallacy. The pervasive belief that life should be fair and that good deeds must be rewarded with good treatment. The Stoics understood that the universe operates on its own terms. Justice is an ideal we strive for, not a guarantee from others. The self-blame trap. The corrosive illusion that if only we had been different, kinder, tougher, smarter, we could have prevented their bad behavior. This is an attempt to regain a sense of control, but it often leads to unwarranted guilt and shame. The mind-reading fallacy. Assuming malice or specific intent when the other person might be acting from weakness, ignorance, or their own pain. We often create elaborate narratives about why they did what they did, which may have little basis in reality. The external locus of control. The most damaging illusion: believing that your peace, your worth, or your ability to move forward depends on their apology, their understanding, or their change of behavior. You give them the keys to your happiness. Think of a close friend who suddenly abandons you without explanation, despite years of unwavering loyalty and support from your side. Your mind goes into overdrive. What did I do? Was I too needy, too giving? Are they talking about me? You scroll through old photos, reread messages, searching for clues, spiraling into self-doubt. The raw fact is, they left. The additional suffering comes from your interpretations, your self-blame, and your desperate search for external validation or understanding from someone unwilling or unable to provide it. This internal battle, far more than the initial event, is what truly robs you of your peace. Now, for the uncomfortable yet utterly necessary truth that can shatter these illusions and begin your journey to freedom. Their actions, however hurtful or unjust, cannot under any circumstance diminish your inherent worth or corrupt your character. Their bad behavior is a reflection of their internal disarray, their misguided judgments, their ignorance of what is truly good. Your suffering is not caused by their cruelty, it is prolonged by your attachment to the idea of how they should have acted, by your judgment that their actions define your value, and by your relinquishment of control over your own emotional response. You cannot control their past, you cannot control their future, but you are the absolute sovereign over your own mind, your own interpretations, and your own healing. The true injustice is to allow them to continue to occupy and poison your inner sanctuary. This problem of unaddressed hurt and externalized suffering, if left unexamined, doesn't just remain static, it deepens and calcifies. It develops over time, hardening our hearts, poisoning our wells, and setting us on a path far removed from the tranquility we seek. How this problem develops over time. Initially, there's shock and pain. But if we continually ruminate, seeking answers where there are none, or justice where it won't be found, that raw wound begins to fester. We move from initial hurt to resentment, a bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly. This is the emotion that chains you to the past, forcing you to constantly revisit the scene of the crime. Cynicism, a loss of faith in others, a pervasive suspicion that everyone will eventually betray you. This builds walls, prevents new connections, and isolates you from the very social support necessary for healing. Self-protective guardedness. While healthy boundaries are crucial, this often manifests as an inability to trust, to be vulnerable, or to offer love freely again. We mistake hardened cynicism for strength, when in fact it's a prison of our own making. Future relationship sabotage. Unresolved hurt from past betrayals is often carried into new relationships. We project our fears, test new partners, or push them away before they can hurt us again, thus creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. The impact on life, mindset, and daily decisions. A mindset of scarcity. Instead of seeing abundance in potential connections, you see scarcity, a limited pool of trustworthy people, a constant threat of loss. Decision-making based on fear. You make choices not for growth or joy, but to avoid pain. This leads to stagnation, missed opportunities, and a life lived cautiously on the defensive. Loss of inner tranquility. The Stoics prized ataraxia, freedom from disturbance, and apatheia, freedom from unhealthy passions. Clinging to resentment, anger, and the need for external validation directly assaults these states. Your inner world becomes a battleground, not a sanctuary. You become a slave to those who harmed you, allowing them to continue to disturb your peace long after their physical presence has departed. The Stoics vividly described these consequences. They would call the constant replaying of past wrongs, the festering resentment, a form of self-torture. Seneca, in his essay on anger, explains how holding on to anger harms the angry person far more than its intended target. It's like swallowing poison and expecting the other person to die. He wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay. Let us allow passions to pass us by, lest we succumb to them. For those who are swept away by their emotions are carried as far as they are by them, unable to stop themselves, as if they were falling from a height." Epictetus would argue that to allow another person's actions to rob you of your inner peace is to surrender your prohieris, your faculty of moral choice and control over your inner world. You are, in essence, handing them the reins to your mind, letting them become your master. And a mind enslaved, no matter how justly angered, cannot be truly free or at peace. Marcus Aurelius, contemplating the foolishness of those who do wrong, saw them as merely ignorant of what is good and bad. He understood that people do not choose to be bad for evil's sake, but because they are mistaken about what will bring them happiness or benefit. This perspective is not about excusing their behavior, but about depersonalizing it. It allows you to see their actions as a symptom of their internal illness, rather than a personal affront designed to undermine your worth. Metaphor. Imagine trying to heal a physical wound while constantly picking at the scab. Each time you pick, you reintroduce bacteria, reopen the flesh, and prevent the natural healing process. Clinging to the why, replaying the hurt, demanding justice from an unjust world, these are all ways of picking at the emotional wound, preventing closure and sustained recovery. The Stoics teach us to let the scab form, to allow the healing process to take its course, even when it means accepting the permanence of the scar. The scar is a testament to what you survive. The continued picking is a choice to remain ill. Your peace, your growth, your capacity for future love, all these vital aspects of a flourishing life are held captive when you allow the shadow of another's poor choices to define your present. This is not about forgetting, it is about choosing to free yourself from the chains of their making. The picture I've painted of this lingering pain, this self-imposed captivity, is indeed challenging. It reveals the uncomfortable truth of how we often perpetuate our own suffering by focusing on the wrong things. But the beauty and profound practicality of Stoicism isn't just in its diagnostic power, it's in its powerful, actionable prescription. This philosophy doesn't just explain why you were treated badly and why you continue to hurt. It provides a comprehensive, time-tested operating manual for reclaiming your inner peace, for fortifying your character against future assaults, and for transforming that very pain into an unparalleled source of wisdom and resilience. It offers a path to move from being a victim of someone else's poor choices to becoming the conscious architect of your own unshakable serenity. We're not talking about burying emotions or developing a cold indifference. We are talking about genuine healing, about moving from helpless indignation to powerful self-sovereignty. The good news is that these solutions are not esoteric philosophical debates. They are practical mental exercises, frameworks for reasoning, and habits of reflection that you can begin applying immediately to liberate yourself. Here are the cornerstone Stoic practices that will empower you to heal, move forward, and regain your inner tranquility, even when others have treated you badly. 1. Reclaim control with the dichotomy of control. What it is, this is the bedrock of Stoicism. Clearly distinguish between what is within your power, your judgments, opinions, desires, actions, character, and what is outside your power, other people's actions, their opinions of you, their past behavior, external events. How to apply. When the hurt arises, immediately identify their actions were outside my control. My reaction to their actions, my interpretation of what it means about me, and my decision to hold on to resentment, these are within my control. Redirect all your energy to what you can control. Reasoning. Framework. What is the bare fact of what happened? What am I adding to it? What part of this can I actually change or influence now? Your edge. You stop wasting precious mental and emotional energy on the futile task of wishing others had acted differently. You reclaim your agency and direct your power where it matters most, over your own mind. 2. Depersonalize their actions. They act from ignorance. What it is. Adopt Marcus Aurelius's perspective. People who do wrong are often ignorant of what is good and bad. Their hurtful actions stem from their own flawed logic, weakness, or internal suffering, not a direct assessment of your worth. How to apply. When you feel the sting, try to see their behavior as a symptom of their internal state. They are sick, not evil. They are misguided, not malicious, even if the outcome felt malicious to you. This isn't excusing them, but understanding their flawed operating system. Reflection. Habit. What could they have been struggling with that led them to act this way? What lack of wisdom or virtue might have been driving their choice? Your edge. This allows you to detach emotionally. You stop taking it personally, recognizing that their poor behavior says everything about them and nothing about you. It prevents their toxic energy from poisoning your self-perception. 3. Practice prosocial attention on your impressions. What it is. Constant vigilance over your thoughts and initial reactions to events. Do not immediately assent to the first impression that forms in your mind. How to apply. When the thought "I was wronged" or "I am unworthy" arises, pause, intercept it. Ask, is this impression true, rational, and helpful, or is it a reactive emotional judgment that causes me further pain? Challenge and reframe. The event happened. The meaning you assign to it is your choice. Journaling prompt. What impression am I assenting to that is causing me continued suffering? What alternative, more rational interpretation could I adopt? Your edge. You break free from automatic negative thought patterns. You become the editor of your own mind, choosing which thoughts to empower and which to dismiss, thus preventing rumination from taking root. 4. Embrace amor fati, love of fate, for what has occurred. What it is. Not just accepting what happened, but actively embracing it as an unchangeable part of your life's tapestry, a necessary ingredient for your growth. How to apply. Instead of lamenting "why me," or "if only," shift to "this happened. Now, how can I use this? What lesson is here for my character? How can this make me stronger, wiser, more compassionate? See it as a rigorous training exercise designed for your soul. Reasoning framework. This painful experience has been woven into my life's narrative. How can I ensure it becomes a chapter of triumph and growth, rather than one of perpetual victimhood? Your edge. You transform adversity into fuel. You leverage every experience, good or bad, for your own development. Becoming antifragile, you don't just recover, you get stronger because of the shock. 5. Focus on your own virtue, the only true good. What it is. The Stoics believed that the only true good lies in your own virtuous character, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Everything else is indifferent: health, wealth, reputation, how others treat you. How to apply. When you are wronged, your primary concern should be, am I still acting with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance in my response to this? Am I maintaining my own character, despite their actions? Do not let their vices corrupt your virtues. Daily mental exercise. Did their actions make me less wise, less just, less courageous, less temperate? If the answer is no, then they have inflicted no ultimate harm upon you. Your edge. You anchor your sense of worth in an unshakable internal source. No external action, no matter how cruel, can touch your true value. You become impervious to the whims and malice of others, possessing a self-respect that cannot be given or taken away. 6. Practice premeditatio malorum, premeditation of evils for human nature. What it is: mentally preparing for the fact that people will act imperfectly, inconsistently, and sometimes cruelly. How to apply: instead of being shocked and disillusioned, acknowledge that human fallibility is a constant. People will be people. Not everyone will be kind, fair, or grateful. This doesn't mean becoming cynical, but realistic. Reflection habit. What could I reasonably expect from human nature? How can I protect myself with boundaries while still offering my best self, without expectation? Your edge. You inoculate yourself against disillusionment and shock. You learn to extend trust wisely, with open eyes, and to build resilience for when others inevitably fall short. 7. Cultivate compassion for the ignorant. What it is: not pity, but a profound understanding that those who harm others are often harming themselves more deeply through their misguided actions. How to apply: instead of anger, try to cultivate a measure of compassion for their ignorance. They are living a life devoid of wisdom, justice, or temperance, and that itself is a form of suffering. Journaling prompt. If I believe they acted out of ignorance, what might that ignorance look like? How might their lack of virtue be impacting their life? Your edge. You free yourself from the bitterness of anger and resentment. Compassion, unlike anger, is a virtuous emotion that brings you peace, not further pain. These are not easy practices. They require consistent effort, introspection, and a commitment to self-mastery. But by diligently applying them, you build an inner citadel, a sanctuary of peace that no external force, no amount of unkindness, can ever breach. Let's illustrate how these Stoic practices translate into real-world transformation, allowing individuals to move beyond the question, why me, to what now? Modern life scenario. The toxic family member. Without Stoicism, imagine David, constantly hurt by his siblings' cutting remarks and passive-aggressive behavior, despite David's continuous efforts to be supportive. He spends hours ruminating, feeling guilty, and trying to fix the relationship, only to be repeatedly wounded. His emotional well is constantly drained. With Stoicism, David begins to apply the dichotomy of control 1. He recognizes he cannot control his siblings' words or temperament. He focuses instead on his response. He practices prosautia 3, intercepting the impression that his siblings' comments define his worth. He then practices depersonalization 2, seeing his siblings' behavior as a manifestation of their own unhappiness or insecurity. He sets firm, kind boundaries, choosing to engage less frequently or deeply where toxicity persists. His focus shifts to his own virtue 5, maintaining his kindness and composure, irrespective of their actions. By the end, David finds peace not by changing his sibling, but by changing his reaction and internal landscape. He still cares, but he is no longer emotionally tethered to their dysfunction. Historical example: Epictetus and his leg. As a slave, Epictetus was subjected to physical abuse by his master, including having his leg broken. Epictetus's Stoic response: he famously observed, "If you want to be free, you must understand that there is no power in the external world which can enslave you." When his master twisted his leg, Epictetus calmly warned, "You will break it." When it broke, he simply stated, "I told you that you would break it." He immediately applied the dichotomy of control 1. The act of breaking his leg was external, outside his control. His judgment of it, his inner reaction, remained within his sovereign power. He didn't allow the physical pain or the injustice to corrupt his inner tranquility or his ability to reason. He saw it as an indifferent external, a test of his resolve, and moved on, unbroken in spirit. This radical self-mastery allowed him to become one of history's most influential teachers of freedom. Hypothetical story: Maya and the professional betrayal. Maya poured years into a project, only for a colleague to steal her ideas and present them as their own, undermining her career and leaving her feeling deeply betrayed and resentful. With Stoicism, initially heartbroken, Maya applies Amor Fati 4, acknowledging the betrayal as a brutal but unchangeable fact. She uses journaling prompts from 3-5 to process her anger, challenging the impression that this act defines her professional competence. She actively chooses to focus on her own virtue 5, her continued dedication, integrity, and skill, rather than dwelling on revenge or bitterness. She makes a conscious decision not to allow the colleague's ignoble act to make her ignoble. Instead of lashing out, she uses a virtue-focused decision-making implicit in 5 framework, deciding on a calm, rational and strategic response, e.g., documenting her contributions, seeking advice from a mentor, focusing on her next project with renewed vigor rather than an emotional one. Her commitment to her own character becomes her shield and her forward momentum. She doesn't forget, but she integrates the experience as a hard-won lesson, emerging with an unshakable inner confidence that cannot be stolen. These transformations are not about becoming emotionless automatons. They are about becoming truly human, truly free, capable of feeling deeply, yet choosing how to respond, capable of acknowledging pain, yet refusing to be defined by it. They illustrate how applying these Stoic principles allows you to transcend suffering, not by denying its existence, but by reclaiming your power over your internal landscape. Let this profound truth sink deep into your bones. No external action, no matter how cruel, no word, no betrayal, no injustice can ever truly harm you, the real you, your inner self, your character, your capacity for reason and virtue. They can damage your body, your possessions, your reputation, your career, even your heart, in the physical sense. But they cannot touch the core of who you are, unless you, through your own judgment and assent, allow them to. Visual. A close-up on the figure's hand, open and unclenched, a symbol of letting go and inner peace. Their bad behavior is their problem, their burden, their misguided journey through life. Your continued suffering from it is your choice. The ultimate freedom, the most profound peace, lies in severing that psychic cord, in guarding your inner citadel with unwavering vigilance, and in realizing that your worth is intrinsic, immutable, and utterly beyond the reach of anyone else's actions. You are the sole custodian of your own soul. So, as you walk forward, perhaps still carrying the scars of past hurts, understand this: you cannot control the unkindness you've received, but you are the absolute sovereign of your response to it. You are the author of the next chapter of your story. Choose not to be a victim of circumstance, but a victor of your own spirit. Choose to transform the lead of their unkindness into the gold of your wisdom. Choose to free yourself from the chains of resentment and the prison of false expectations. For in doing so, you will discover an unshakable peace that no person, no event, no amount of external malice can ever diminish. Your tranquility, your virtue, your unyielding self-respect, these are your ultimate power, your true freedom, and the most profound testament to a life well lived. This is the Stoic path to healing, resilience, and an enduring sense of self, beyond the reach of any who would seek to harm you.